Would you like to learn how to make this beautiful fresh vegetable minestrone? Stay tuned to the next episode of Hilltop Stovetop. Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we're teaching you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. Today we have a special show. We're doing the show after our Gala 75th episode, and we needed to do something special. So we're making a road trip, and today's video is being filmed at Prairie View Acreage in Humboldt, Saskatchewan, at the home of my nephew-in-law, Larry, and my niece, Patricia. And Larry's going to be my assistant chef today. And we've spent the last day or so helping them in a minor way to harvest their wonderful garden. And so we need to put some of that produce to use. So today we are going to be making minestrone soup. And minestrone soup is one of those soups that is a great use for leftover vegetables of any kind you want. It really is normally a tomato-based soup versus an Italian wedding soup, which is normally a chicken stock-based. And also minestrone is usually a vegetarian, but you can add meat to it if you wish. So we're going to do two versions of this today. I'm going to be doing one version in the Instant Pot where we are for what we're going to have for dinner tonight. And Larry is going to do another version in the big pot on the stove, which is all the leftovers. So we're going to, that way we'll have a big batch of soup to put into the freezer. Now Larry's version is going to be a little different than mine. He's going to be using okra, and we'll just do a little close up here. I'm going to be using okra to help thicken that. And he's not going to put pasta in his, because when you put pasta in and then you let it sit for quite a while, the liquid just keeps absorbing and absorbing and absorbing into the pasta, and that gets way too thick. So this way, if it goes into the freezer, then when they thaw it, then they can add pasta as they are ready to use it throughout the next month or so. So we're going to start off, as usual, when we're doing something like this. Of course, we're going to turn on our Instant Pot, turn on the other stove, or the other pot, which has got olive oil in it. And we're going to start with our aromatics. So we're going to start, I've got a variety of onions chopped up here. Doesn't really matter which kind you use. And we're going to get those started. And whatever I'm not using in my pot, I'm just going to hand over to Larry to put into the big pot. So we've got onions, we've got garlic, and we have, we have beautiful celery, homegrown. So this is really, really flavorful celery. And so we're going to put a bit of that in. And you'll notice that I've included the leaves of the celery. When you're making soup, putting the leaves in is certainly allowable and extra special. And we're going to let this simmer until the onions are starting to get translucent, and then we'll be ready for the next step. So we'll see you in a few minutes. All right, so Larry just asked me a very pertinent question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what kind of meat would you like would we think about putting into a minestrone soup?
I would think that some nice Italian sausage or some mini meatballs similar to the kind that you would use in an Italian wedding soup would work very well with this. And you could probably get away with chicken or something, but I don't think you'd want ham or those kind of cured meats. But meatballs, hamburger, stuff like that would be just fine.
Fantastic.
Okay, so now our onions are nice and translucent. And remember, when we're adding vegetables to any kind of dish, we got to remember how long each one of these things takes to cook. So the next thing we're going to put in is the carrots. And these 4 ingredients are probably the usual staples of this soup.
Thank you.
And now we're going to add in some broth. Oops. So because I want mine to be a truly vegetarian one, I've got vegetable broth here. And Larry is going to be putting some chicken broth in his. And so let's just see here. I'm going to put in enough broth to at least cover those vegetables, maybe a little bit more. And then we're going to let this simmer until the carrots are starting to get soft. Not totally, but that'll take a few minutes. And then once that's done, then we're going to start putting in the rest of the vegetables. So Larry, you can put that into yours as well as the chicken broth. So when the carrots are starting to get soft, then we're going to start adding things like we have some fresh green and yellow beans that just came out of the garden. And we have fresh zucchini. This is a great way to use up some zucchini, and it will freeze well when it's in the soup and it's cooked. And then we've got a mixture of beans here. And minestrone always has some kind of beans in it. So I've got 3 different kinds. One was a blend of beans. Then there was the black beans and some Romano beans. And you want something like the Romano beans kind of have an Italian twist to that, I'll say. So I emptied out all the cans and mixed all those together. I did add a little bit of extra water to it just to rinse out the cans, because we're going to be adding some water to this soup anyway. So we'll put in beans, zucchini, and the canned beans. Then when all those things are almost cooked, then we're going to add in our leafy vegetables. So here I've got some beet greens and some spinach, again, fresh out of the garden today. And then we're going to finish it off with some canned tomatoes. Now these tomatoes, we've chosen the ones that already have the Italian seasoning in it. If you had just plain tomatoes, go ahead and add some thyme and some oregano. The other thing that we'll want to be adding is some basil and, of course, salt and pepper. Some of these cans of tomatoes are the sodium reduced, so we'll want to taste things and just see whether or not we want to add more salt to it, and the pepper as well. So we're going to let these simmer for a few minutes, and we'll see you as soon as the carrots are ready. Okay, we're back, and our carrots are starting to soften up, so we're ready to add a few more things. So we will start with the fresh green and yellow beans that we picked yesterday. Hand that off to the assistant. And then we will add in the canned beans. And here's mine. Give the rest off to Larry for his. And then we're going to add in the zucchini. So the zucchini that I chose to use were ones that were this size and a little smaller, so that I was able to cut them up into reasonable pieces. And so we will add in a little bit on my side and a whole bunch on Larry's side.
Thank you.
Oh. Okay, and we'll get that nicely warmed up. Now things like the greens, of course, will cook very, very quickly. So we'll get this up to a boil. And I think I'm going to add in to this. So this is spinach and beet greens. Now, like I said, the big thing is to have your onions, garlic, celery, and carrots. Those are the basics. Anything else from a vegetable perspective, you can add in as you wish. Now, you notice that the liquid is starting to come up to the top of the vegetables. So at this point, I'm going to add some more water to that, because we started off with a vegetable stock, but there's all the flavors that are out of that vegetable. So just plain water at this point will be enough. But we have to have enough water in here, and we have to have enough water that's boiling, so that when we get to the point where we're putting the pasta in there, we've got water for that, or liquid for that. There we go. So there's mine. And how's Larry's?
I'm going to top mine up as well.
Okay. So we'll bring this back up to a boil, and then it'll be time for the tomatoes and the pasta. So give us a few minutes for this to come up to the boil, and we will see you then. Okay, so we're back. Our veggies have come to a nice boil, and we're ready to put in the tomatoes. But Larry?
Yeah, I was just curious. I said, why do we wait so long to put in tomatoes? I would have thought that maybe we put them in a bit earlier to kind of get that flavor nicely blended throughout.
Exactly. So the reason you don't do that is tomatoes have a tendency, there's an enzyme in them that can change how other things cook. So if you have, say for instance, the carrots that are in this, or if we'd chosen to put potatoes in it, if we'd put the tomatoes in too soon, while those vegetables would have cooked, they would have stayed hard. And this gives them a chance to soften up a little bit before we add in the tomatoes. So we're going to do that right now. Larry's going to put in 3 cans, and I'm going to put in 1 because I've got the smaller pot. And then the last thing that we're going to do is, second last thing, is I'm going to give this a little taste just to see if we need salt and pepper added in. Yeah, and I think I am going to add some pepper in and a little bit of salt, which brings us to Larry's next question.
Yeah, I like things spicy. I like it hot. So in order to spice this up a little bit, what would you recommend using to heat it up a little bit?
Well, we sure want to add salt and pepper. I would say you could probably even add a little bit of cayenne pepper if you really wanted a good hit with it. That would help a lot. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of basil, which isn't going to make it hot, but it is going to enhance the flavor of those tomatoes. Now, if you had fresh basil, of course, you could use that, but I'm going to add some dried basil, and I'll let Larry do the same to his taste. And the other thing, as you're tasting these things, sometimes when you've got a tomato base, if you want to add just a little bit of sugar, it will pull out the saltiness. I'm not going to worry about that too much because right now it seems pretty good, but if you wanted to pull out even more flavors, you could do that. So we've got the spices added. Now, this is the part where I'm going to add in some pasta. Usually with minestrone, you'll try for either an elbow macaroni or a small shell, something that's going to stay in a kind of a round shape so that when you pick up a spoonful of soup, the noodle will stay in the bowl of the spoon. So I'm going to add a little bit of that into mine. And at this point, Larry's going to add the okra into his soup. And okra, when it cooks, it releases kind of a mucilaginous.
Big word.
Big word. It's some people think it's kind of slimy, but that sliminess or mucilaginous is what acts as a thickener in soups and stews. So we're going to let all of these things simmer for about another 20 minutes, and the soups should be ready to go at that point. So we'll see you in about 20 minutes. Okay, and we're back at about the 20-minute mark here, and things are looking pretty good. So we're going to dish up a bowl full of this delightful fresh vegetable pasta minestrone. Oh, there's the timer saying that was our 20 minutes officially. And then we're going to take a little bit of Parmesan and sprinkle it on the top. If we had some fresh basil, we could sprinkle that as well. And, maybe add a little piece of crusty bread or something, and you have an amazing meal.
It smells delicious.
Mm-hmm. There we go. So there we have it. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Hilltop Stovetop, where we made fresh vegetable minestrone with vegetables straight out of the garden here at Prairie View Properties in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. And we'll see you in our next episode. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.